Alright guys, today I'm going to do the trade recap for today. I did a lot of my commentary in Oracle Index, so like if you ever want to go back and look at that, like I normally show my calls and everything like throughout the day on what I'm looking at. So come over here to the 9 a.m. open, and you can actually see here. So right off the bat, what I'm noticing on this map is we had the 7725 stealing on SPX, we had 772 on SPY, and QQQ had this 717 node pointed down. So what I'm looking at is that we have two stealings to the upside, so upside is very capped, and we could see a possible rejection right here and a push lower. So I actually did play this deflection in the morning off of the SPX King node, just because QQQ had the 717 pointed down, and I always it's hard for me to long a gap up, especially with how we were moving at pre-market, and we were so close to the previous day high. I was expecting for the market to rebalance and looking to short it back down. So I shorted this all the way back down. I'm pretty sure we also got like a retest later on, which we'll look back at. And I pretty much short this all the way to QQQ 717, and then I played the deflection right here. I longed this bounce back up and caught a nice bounce on the QQQ 717, and then I got out at the SPX King node again. And then I shorted the SPX King node again because this was a double top on SPY. Right here we had this double top, SPX had the King node, and Q's the 717 still hasn't went off steam. So QQQ is still in that negative gamma regime, and I'm expecting Q's to move way better and more because there's not like this all these positives on SPY, and SPX also technically has a rug set up to the downside with these negatives to amplify any more downside move. And I short this down, and we actually we ended up just completely flushing. Like, this was insane. Now IBs get set at 10, so I'm not marking this out. But this is kind of important here. Well, I got out my short way too early. I cut my cons. But here at 10 a.m., well, actually, I longed this, I believe, at 10? Or was it on the pullback? I'm pretty sure it was on the pullback here. It was when, yeah. So, QQQ ended up breaking out the IB low, and I did say that this was going to be, that I was very much convinced that this IB low was going to break, just because of the fact that SPY and SPX eliminated the upside, right? This SPX had the King node, SPY, they started putting the 770, and they had the 769. So Q's look so much weaker, and if you look at the maps, 713 is a positive node, and on QQQ, the 713 node is pretty interesting, right? So once we got to 713 here on Q's, I actually longed this on NQ and caught the bottom. So I played longs here, and my main reasoning was because SPY had a King node, QQQ had the 710 node, right? And SPX is King node and still had these positives pointing up. And in my eyes, it would be hard. Remember, QQQ already made its IB break of the low, and SPY and SPX still hasn't made a break. And they're actually in their golden zone for a bullish fib setup. So once I saw this bullish fib setup on the IBs, I was kind of like, all right, well, QQQ is not going to go any lower if SPY and SPX hold these up. We also have the 7710 here on SPX and the 769 with a sort of Pika stack for me here on SPY. Now we do have this resistance, so I played the 713 on Qs, and I basically took this all the way up to the break of the IBs. So once we got the break here, this was my exit. This is where I'm exiting because we were starting to approach and get the IB break to the upside. So after I saw this break, then I exit my position. We were also getting to the QQQ 717, and we could find resistance in this area. Also, what this positive is forming, and the 772 on SPX, or on SPY, my bad. Now, we actually clear and blow past the IB, and this was the third test, so I was expecting a break of that SPX King node. Now, this was the third test. We blew straight through it. And what I'm looking at here is on QQQ, 716 has a reverse rug. On SPY has a reverse rug from 770. And on SPX, we have the 7725 that's now support, with the negative Barney still pointing up at 7740 and 7800. 774 is also pointing up on SPY. So here, I actually entered on the 618 right here on QQQ. And this is like one of my main trades for a day, because we had the reverse rug on SPY and QQQ. We had the 7725 on SPX. So I'm pretty sure I waited for us to come a little lower and then I longed this back up. Oh no, that was a different position I took. So this is my entry here for longs, and I took this back up because we tested the IB and we confirmed more expansion, and this was a pretty nice test. And I took this to 719, I believe, on Qs, or I don't remember when I got out actually. I think I got out at like the peak there. I got trailed out of my position, and then we ended up actually getting another retest, which I mentioned in chat, not here. Right on this retest right here, where we get a retest of 717 again, and the SPX 7725, so at the same time here, and they're forming a Pika cloud here in SPY, so they're preventing this downside. So we got 3 nodes to play off of here, and they also literally roll up the king node on SPY like really fast. They roll it down, then they roll it up. Right here at 770, they rolled that up, and then we get a push higher. And this was the next long I took. And we got the nice move up. Now, I got out here at 719 on Qs because we were kind of forming a ceiling potential here at 719 on Qs, and like we ended up just, I think we dumped here. That was like my exit. And like we got the rug down from 719, which is kind of what I was worrisome about. And then I took another long somewhere for like a scalp. I believe it was here, if I'm not mistaken. No, it was later on. So yeah, we see that. Oh, the SPY 769. So that 769 node right here, like we test back to 770 and just keep pushing lower. And then we end up getting, and then we got a retest, pushed down to 769. This is what Jewel was commentating, and this is where I entered longs. And I entered longs mainly off of the main conviction that, alright, we were testing the QQQ 716 again for a reverse rug, and the SPY 769, which is a fresh king node. And we were texting these negative Barneys on SPX, so I took this. And then we get our squeeze right here. I took some trims off of the 717 on Qs, and then we got our squeeze up here. So this ran out nice, and we ran up to the 7725, which I missed my short on. It was an amazing short off of this node. I was actually waiting for a retest, but we had a nice short back down. Then we swept this back again, and I longed it back up again. Same exact thesis. The 716 is growing. Reverse rug once again. And then from here, like I was already out, and I actually entered a put here because I was expecting us to dump back down just because they started playing the SPY 770. They started growing, and we also had the 717 on Qs, with now setting up a rug to the downside. And then we ended up did gain our move like down. We got a retest, and they like ended up dumping it. Like I already exited this on this leg down to the previous day high because it ended up holding support. And then I actually I caught an MOC short just because everything was pointing down, and the short ran I believe 70% here. So yeah, this is pretty cool. It's pretty cool how we now have Nexus access, so people could actually see trade executions and everything. But yeah, today was a very nice, rewarding day. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy.